public opinion, you know? So we're talking Rob Ford, that of course being a lead story in Sneha's Newspack. It's what people are talking about. We're joined by Daniel Kayfetz, you're a criminal lawyer. I know that we were chatting about the apology on the weekend. I have to think that was lawyered to the hilt.
Well, it was a safe thing for him to do. And he knows that he has done things that he shouldn't have done, things that are embarrassing and things that make him look bad. At the same time, he also knows that he hasn't committed any corruption. He hasn't gotten paybacks for contracts from the city. He hasn't put
You got to go to Quebec for that.
Yeah. So what he's trying to do is separate what he's done at a personal level from his job as a mayor.
But I also took it as being, I'm going to apologize now for something. I'm not going to say what, so that when and if something does come out, I can say, well, I said I was sorry. That was, of course, included in it. Well,
yes, it was safe, and yet it demonstrated that he wasn't arrogant about admitting he did things wrong. Like, we're talking about the publicity of him being drunk on St. Patrick's Day, for example. He didn't specifically apologize for that, but you take a look at it and you say, on St. Patrick's Day, doesn't every bar advertise, come out and get drunk? We'll put tents out in the street. We'll flow beer like crazy. We have advertising that makes it look like it's okay to get drunk that day. And he got into the partying of getting drunk that day.
So you're suggesting that the mayor should live up to all the things that we ask of our people on St. Patty's Day? Go and get drunk? I mean, don't mayors and public officials have to live up to something else?
Well, I think that what we're talking about is his apology that at a personal level, he's done things that he shouldn't have done.
Right, so let's listen to that. I'm going to stop you there. Let's listen to the first clip where he talks about his mistakes.
Friends, I'm the first one to admit I am not perfect. I have made mistakes. I have made mistakes, and all I can do right now is apologize for the mistakes. I sincerely apologize to my family, to the citizens, the taxpayers of this great city, and to my colleagues on Toronto City Council.
I have to say, had they played that cheesy soap music yesterday during his apology, it's much more effective. They should have gotten that looped in yesterday. So there's the apology. It came up short for a lot of people.
Well, it sounds to me like when a child gets caught doing something by a parent. In this case, the mayor gets caught doing a whole lot of things that make him look bad. And so he wants to say he's sorry without admitting to the parent all the things that he might have done, not knowing what the parent knows about.
Right.
And it seems as though that was a safe thing to do. And as you said, as things come out, and they will, obviously, because the amount of investigation and people coming out of the woodwork and people from City Hall, employees at City Hall, junior staffers, people working security, they're all going to come out with stories.
Of course, but look, the police spent they had to have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this investigation. It's a huge cost to the taxpayers. Questions that came up for me: why didn't they collect any evidence if they suggest that envelopes were passed back and forth? Why were no envelopes ever taken, or were they? And this whole bit about Ford saying, show the tape. He knows very well that they can't show that tape. It makes for great TV and a great headline because it makes you look like you have nothing to hide. But the bottom line is, it's in the court's hands. They can't do anything about that.
Well, the problem is that the police in the investigation apparently didn't find anything that they could use to lay a charge. The police have the powers of search warrants.
Right.
Which means that...
Which is why they would have been doing the wiretapping, is to see if they could continue to build a case.
They have a general warrant or specific warrant, and they can go to a judge, and they say to a judge, we have reason to believe that this is evidence which would be destroyed or disappear if we don't get it. And then as a result of that evidence, as a result of that search warrant, they can go to the place where the person went with the envelope and go and look for the envelope. The courts give enormous power to police in order to be able to preserve evidence and find evidence. And it seems as though that wasn't done here. As you say, we don't know why.
But the chief came out during that press conference to me in a very political move saying, yes, we have a tape. It has images on it that have been spoken about in the media. It doesn't say what it is, but he came out. Do you think that the chief of police of the biggest city in Canada would have come out and put his neck on the line if it weren't the alleged tape? I mean, he has a lot to lose here if there's nothing on that tape.
Well, he does, but the problem that I see is what business has the chief of police making public statements about somebody, as opposed to taking the evidence, presenting it to the Crown Attorney with regard to the investigation and perhaps laying charges. The job of the chief of police is not to be a public relations person for anybody. He's to lead investigators who will research, do investigation, bring evidence of crime, take steps to prevent crime, get search warrants to gather evidence. But this idea of making public statements seems to be twisted. That is, he's saying, I'm telling you this person is guilty of doing something wrong. And as the chief of police, believe me, it may be true, but is that what we expect from the chief of police?
So is this a conflict of interest in your view? Should this have been given to an outside body like the OPP or the RCMP to investigate? I mean, given the relationship between the Toronto Police and the city, how can they be objective?
Well, I understand that. I hadn't thought about that. But since the police board is under the City of Toronto, with regard to investigating somebody who was a senior politician in Toronto, maybe it should have been handled by an outside police force. But the bottom line is that whatever money and effort was put in by the Toronto police force did not result in evidence that could justify the laying of a charge. And
so given that we're now a few days past the initial comments made by the chief, do you believe that there's any way, even with that apparent video image they've got of the mayor doing something, can they charge him?
Well, the usual,
or will they charge him?
Well, the usual case is this. If they do an investigation and they don't find enough to lay a charge, you never hear about it again. If they do wiretaps and listen in on somebody's phone for 2 years and get renewals of the orders, they have to give the person a notice that their phone was wiretapped. They may have found all kinds of unpleasant things to listen into, but they don't make public pronouncements as a result of the investigation that did not lead to charges being laid.
So I think this case, would you agree, comes down to the court of public opinion for Mr. Ford? Because I mean, he is not, let's be honest, and I've been in the media a long time, I have never in my entire life seen a media driven to the point of frothing at the mouth to get someone. I'm not saying that Ford does not invite his own trouble, because he does create a lot of his own problems, but I've never seen it, a media, let alone a city council, as determined to get a city politician or a political leader out as this guy.
No, it seems as though that he is a target, he's an easy target, and he makes himself an easy target. And yesterday, after what I saw on TV after he was leaving CFRB was the reporters screaming after him. You said you talked to us. You said you talked to us. You're driving away. You said you talked to us. Live up to your promises. Live up to your promises. Now, this seems to be a childishness that they expect him to be standing at the window of his car answering questions at that particular time, as opposed to a future press conference.
If only they would dedicate this kind of vengeance to maybe the former premier, Dalton McGuinty, about those little power plants. But hey,
that's a whole other
world. It's not
world.
nearly as sexy, is it? I got to let you go there, Daniel. Thank you so much for coming in. Appreciate
it. Good. And,
let's get Gina's thoughts on this, because I know Gina, Ford Nation has been driving this conversation online for a long time. They're still very much for the mayor, standing behind him.
Yes, absolutely. The people that have liked him all along continue to like him no matter what, it seems. And all the points that you guys just talked about, I can find an opinion, a comment to match each and every different viewpoint here. You know, everybody is weighing in on this. I'll read you some of them here. And this is what you guys were just saying. Bradley says, I think the cop broke the law by his public disclosure on an open case. When did that become okay? Usually they say they can't comment on an ongoing investigation.
Okay, so stop there, because we've got the lawyer here.
Right.
How would you handle this if this were your client? And I'm talking Ford, not Lacey.
He would have a civil action, I think.
Yeah,
because what they've done is besmirch him. And it seems to be, I think the law on this, and sorry, this is civil, has to do with saying something that is intended to bring somebody into disrepute and making that public. And I think that's what the law is with regard to that area. So if you do something and that is your intention, you're not allowed to do that. You can't say bad things about somebody just so you will make them diminish their importance, make people laugh at them, make people think badly of them. And in that case, the person has a right to give notice saying, you've done this to me. And I just looked at the law recently for something else, and you have 3 months to make that complaint. and they can make it right by apologizing.
Maybe someone will bring it on behalf of Rob Ford, Gina?
Yeah, well, maybe. I mean, everybody is calling it, like here this guy says it's blatant public smearing. You know, how can they go about doing it like that? So certainly Chief Bill Blair in this case being held accountable with some people online. And the other thing I said last hour, Torontonians being very embarrassed of their mayor. Well, a viewer just wrote to me saying, no, what's embarrassing is all the negative media attention, you know, the blatant, you know, they're like paparazzi out there. And I think that is embarrassing too. I would agree on that front, you know, hiding out on his private property, that sort of thing. This is behavior we're seeing from all sides that is unusual in this case.
Yeah, it's been gross to say the least.
Yeah, it has.
This may be the only investigation that's ever taken place of municipal or government officials that doesn't involve either stealing money, sex that shouldn't be taking place, or somehow a corruption.
Oh, if sex got involved in this case, we would be talking for years. Good God, don't even think about it. Hey, Joe Fontana, Mayor of London, we all know, Gina, you included, that he is on charges of fraud. No one talks about it, and he's still doing his job.
Maybe there'll be some sex on the video. I really hope not.
Sorry, Gina. People are eating their breakfast. Guys, thanks a lot.
Okay.